Hello. Thank you very much for having us. It's really great to be here. So we are from a collective, Assemble. We're a multidisciplinary practice working between art, architecture, and design.
Sorry, I went too quickly.
Went too quickly, oh well. But yes, we're made up of about 20 partners, and it's often quite hard to find an image with all of us, but that is a recent image we took in our office studio in London. And as I was saying, we work between art, architecture, and design, and we are a collective practice. And just in case you couldn't spot myself and Anna, that's where we are. So we do various types of work, and this includes making buildings, making businesses, founding organizations, designing exhibitions, creating artworks, and running different events. So within Assemble, there are a broad range of skills and experience. Not everybody is an architect. We have artists and designers as well. And there seems to be a common interest in the crossover between these disciplines. So this is reflected in the places that we work and the workspaces that we run. So we have a democratic model. So everyone has an equal voice in the practice, which makes for very collaborative and often long meetings. And one thing we're very passionate about in Assemble is food. So every day we make lunch for each other in the office, and I think this is probably the longest running project we have in Assemble. So often, we use the same ingredients but created from different perspectives.
Thank you. So we're going to start by talking about our very first project, which was the Cineroleum, which was a self-initiated project in 2010 that transformed a petrol station on Clerkenwell Road in London into a cinema. So the project took on a site that was due for redevelopment that had been left dormant following the 2008 financial crash. At that time, there were lots of developments in London that were stalling, and there was suddenly space in the city for new meanwhile uses. And a kind of symptom of an economic recession provided an opportunity to experiment, and this has continued to be a really source of opportunity for Assemble projects going forward. The project was rooted in learning through making. It relied on resourcefulness, from securing sponsorship to working with over 100 volunteers, and everything was hands-on and improvised, from the flip-up seats crafted from scaffold boards, the foyer fitted out with old formica-clad school furniture, and the whole process was driven by experimentation and trying things out as we went along. So to allow for collaboration with the public, we created illustrated manuals for building the cinema chairs out of the scaffold boards so that people could come off the street and they could get involved and participate in the construction. So very much like an IKEA instruction manual. The cinema itself was made from readily available, cheap, reclaimed or donated materials, including the scaffold boards for the chairs and Tyvek roofing membrane that was brought together to resemble the kind of familiar and glamorous signifiers of Art Deco cinema. You can see here that there are a few kind of plush red seats, which were all donated from a local film museum. And it was very much, as I said, about making things by hand. The most dramatic gesture was the ruffled curtains that wrapped the cinema, and this was made from Tyvek roofing membrane, which had a kind of reflective silver finish that felt very fittingly kind of dramatic and cinematic. And we hand-sewed over 3 kilometers of seams onto it using a gathered system that allowed it to be kind of pulled up theatrically like a stage curtain. You can see here this in action, it being pulled up, and it brought a real sense of movement and performance to the space. And the act of raising the curtain became a kind of collective ritual. marking the beginning of each screening and transforming the petrol station into a cinema in a way that was both playful and dramatic. And the structure itself became a performance, not just for those coming to watch the film, but also for people passing by on the street. We felt that Cineroleum was more than just a cinema. It became a space of participatory construction, and the process itself was open, visible, and social. It didn't need to be finished to be used. In fact, its transformation was part of the experience itself. And that visibility gave people a sense of agency, a feeling that city could be shaped by many hands, and that idea of activating a site through making before it's kind of officially open has stayed with us and continues to shape our work now. So at the end of each screening, the curtain was pulled up and the space was reunited with the street. And this was kind of a reminder that the transformation was temporary, kind of always porous and always part of the city around it.
So I'm now going to talk about the place we imagine. So it's a more recent project that we've completed in between 2021 and 2022. So it has some similarities with the Cineroleum in its kind of experimental and temporary nature, and working with a lot of the same collaborative principles. So the project was heavily influenced or inspired by this drawing of the Musée d'Art de Sao Paulo by Brazilian architect called Lina Bobardi. This was painted in 1968. And the project brings Lina Bobardi's imagined play sculptures to life as a provocative intervention with the Nottingham Contemporary's civic context. So a lot of these structures, you can see this kind of big red object, which was called the Big Red. And then there's this rainbow circle painted on the floor with these kind of animals around it. And a huge kind of ball that looks like many children are playing with, and then a more abstract structure in the middle. So Assemble views play as a form of critical inquiry, and Bobardi's vision resonates as it proposes a way to imagine, construct, and inhabit an otherwise impossible reality. So we collaborated closely with 3 local primary schools in Nottingham, which really shaped the kind of creative direction of the play sculptures, ensuring the final outcome reflected the perspective of its intended audience, which was the children. So we held a number of workshops with the children from the local schools, working through making and in teams to encourage collective participation. So our workshops kind of differed in nature, and this one investigated different approaches to play, considering the role of curiosity in loose parts, which describes the various ways children engage with play, allowing them to take charge of their own environment. So the children created these really fun clay sculptures, and generally, as a tool, we think clay is great to work with. It's really accessible and intuitive. That really doesn't require any experience to work with. And it's a great tool for exploring three-dimensional ideas, and this hands-on process really, I think, resonates with the children. And the act of making gave the children a strong connection to the outcome. And being able to have a tangible object at the end that they could see, shape, and share was really great. So this approach aligned with our commitment to designing with the children. So from the workshop using the clay, we kind of interrogated some of their sculptures further, and we held a number of internal design workshops to develop the children's ideas into something buildable, safe, and an engaging structure through a series of internal workshops, focusing more on materiality, tactility and form and scale. So sketching and modeling various iterations was key to exploring these elements. So we called the final structure that we developed with the children, it was called the Fun House. So the translation of concept to diagram, exploring how these elements of the Fun House designed by the children can manifest into a more realized structure. So they had fixed and loose elements to encourage different types of play. And that then turned into this. And I think the curator in the gallery was really surprised at how the children interacted with the structure. At first, they didn't think that the children would climb the structure, but that's the first thing they did, which was amazing. And a teacher from a local school said that the project really opened their pupils' eyes to a different world and noticed that children were mixing with other children that they might not normally play with, and really working cooperatively together, which was great to see. So again, taken from Lina Bobardi's image, we thought about how some of these abstract animals could be recreated. So this is some early sketches and then a model, and then you can see it in the exhibition. And we also developed some of these structures through model making, so to test the proportions and scale. And here are some images of the Big Red taken in the gallery space, being enjoyed by adults and children. And then this is the main space of the gallery, and it really felt like the end piece was a collaborative effort, and it felt amazing because typically these spaces aren't for children. Galleries and exhibitions often, children aren't allowed to touch anything. And in this context, it was the reverse of that. And this space really was claimed by the children. And then this red, the Big Red, was also temporarily placed in Toronto in Canada by the Bentway, which is an outdoor public space. So activating the space and encouraging play in a very different context.
So kind of hopefully as these two projects have kind of started to articulate at Assemble, we think kind of collaboration with the people who will be using the projects is really important. And we talk a lot about, in the office, about kind of what does it feel like when young people are genuinely part of shaping the spaces that they use. And we really believe that design becomes a shared language when young people are invited to shape the spaces that they use. And kind of working with children means we have to let go of the kind of fixed outcomes that I think architects are so... It's really hard. It's not in our nature to kind of let go of these kind of ideas, these preconceived notions that we might have, but it's really important to kind of embrace these kind of possibilities and outcomes that might come out of working with the children. This is a project that we're currently working on in South East London, which is a park, and there have been lots of kind of participatory workshops with the local children, and it's become a really powerful form of empowerment for these children who live and go to the school locally. Again, this is like a consultation workshop, and it becomes really meaningful when the consultation is built on kind of trust, time, and continuity. It's not just asking for opinions, but really involving the young people as co-curators from the very start of the project. This is another kind of participatory workshop that we ran with Assemble Play, which is one of our sister organizations. And kind of through these sorts of workshops, we really explore listening through making. So this workshop kind of involved using ropes and hooks and fabrics, and kind of each and every material becomes a tool for dialogue and exploration. And we feel that when young people see their ideas being made in the real, it reinforces a sense of agency and belonging. But it also creates room for imagination and mess, which we feel is so important, and collaboration, and just really makes the process for them, for us, and the kind of end result is just really joyful. And to kind of conclude, in architecture we so often talk about human scale, but we rarely consider the child scale or their way of seeing the world. And through our work with our sister organisation, Assemble Play, the kind of play workers that we work with in the organisation have really taught us how essential this perspective is when we're designing. And working alongside children reminds us to keep imagination in our work and curiosity and care at the very heart of how we design shared spaces. So thank you.